So now we need to take a look at the risk assessment. We've got an idea of the asset delivery protocols, the server that it's running on. We need to do some inventorying, and a risk assessment really is nothing more than an inventory. Now, I say continual inventory here because we're continually updating the threats and vulnerabilities of our organization, but there are like discrete events that happen within your organization. For example, if you use a lot of Microsoft applications, then you're probably going to be dreading Patch Tuesday, or Super Tuesday as I call it. But that information comes in at that discrete time. It gets rolled into our dashboard, and all the other things that happen and all the scans that happen all have to occur. And that may take, like a couple of days for it to happen, especially if you're in a large enterprise. So in the risk assessment process, we're doing an inventory. We're inventorying first the assets themselves, and we call this the asset delivery protocols or the servers. And we're looking for the vulnerabilities and the threats to those assets. That's what we're inventorying there. And then we also have to inventory the controls that we're putting in place, because those controls are controlling the threats and vulnerabilities, and we have to look at the different possibilities that we can put in place there. So that inventorying process, we don't say what are the control threats and vulnerabilities. We say, hey, what control is addressing this? In the case of software, when it's Microsoft's operating system, we say, well, the threat is this old software, old version of this software that is vulnerable, and we're going to replace it with a new version. The control now is a process that we put in place. So we have a result from this, and that result is being able to communicate with management. And a lot of times management will say, hey, is this important? Now, we say, well, yes, it is. We need to go ahead and patch this device. But we really need to think about, hey, should we be doing something? When should we do it? Because we can't patch in the middle of the quarterly closing or things like that. We should do it at an appropriate time and kind of fit it in with business. So we have to consider business. And also, what's the order of things that we do? Because Microsoft may roll out 30 or 40 patches, but what about Adobe that's got a couple of patches that they have to roll out, and our Oracle servers and our Linux kernels need to be updated? How do we do these, and how do we choose that? And that process also has to be calculated inside of the vulnerability management process. So we figure out that it's important, and then management gets to make some decisions along the way to address these risks. The first thing that they can do is they can avoid it. Now, this almost never happens. This says we're going to stop the mission. Now, I've seen organizations that have gotten into businesses and they say, hey, we're in the Internet of Things business. Like one organization that I was working with was in the intrusion detection system business for Internet of Things. They heavily invested in millions and millions of dollars, and they built up some really incredible tools. And they went, wait a minute, this is risking all of our other business, because one little failure right there, we could get sued by one of these massive power companies and we could be out of business. So we're just not going to do that. So it is possible that we stop the mission, but that doesn't happen that often. A lot of times we accept risk and we don't even realize it, and we're doing nothing. I say to you, hey, look, I know you really want that firewall in place and it would really help us out at this point, but we can't afford it. We can't afford it. Ask me next quarter. At this moment in time, I'm doing nothing. Well, wait a minute. I've gone ahead. No, you're doing nothing at that point. The other thing that we could do is we could insure against this. And this is a contract to pay. Now, these are not very good for technical aspects of our organization, even though a lot of insurance companies want you to sign up for ransomware insurance, which I think personally is a really bad idea. But the other part to this is like, for threats of like flood, accidental Mother Nature kind of things, a contract to pay is a great thing. That's not really what we want to do from a technical standpoint. What we want to do is we want to do mitigation. And that means that we're going to deploy controls. And so that's what we want management to do, but realize that they have many options. And it's not just you coming to them. It's she's coming to them and they're coming to them and they're coming. All these different people are all coming to them at the same time saying, hey, we want you to go ahead and fund our project. They go, none of you all, but that one right there, let's go ahead and get that one to go ahead and do it. Okay, so we've got this idea, but let's think about this from a larger sense at this point. So an organization's people are going to deploy controls in more or less mature ways based upon regulations or perceived requirements that are out there to deliver the mission function correctly. Sometimes management says, we have to do this because there's a regulatory environment out there. And I'm sorry, we can't do this thing that we would really like to do over here that would really make a lot of sense. But if we don't do this thing over here that the regulators have said they're going to stop us from being in business, that could be the theory there. So when we think along the lines of controls, realize that there is this business process that lays over top of this. And we'll talk about that in a couple of different sections as we go along.